Oops, I get to hit the button, don't I? Got it.
Yay. Okay, so here's I'm gonna put my description in here. Share it in the right group, and here we go.
Yay.
All right. I'm thinking the live is broadcasting now. And it is. All right, wonderful. Here we are. Yay. All right. Well, welcome everybody to the Learning to Love After Narcissistic Abuse workshop. And my name is Pi Venus Winslow, and I am the host of this event today. And we're in my Facebook group, which is called Trusting After Trauma. And I am a transformational life coach for men and women who are recovering from a narcissistic upbringing. And I have my amazing and beautiful friend here with me today, Andrea Luzon. And so we're going to be doing a 30-minute workshop, and this is an opportunity for us to do some deep diving into what gets in the way of healthy love when we've experienced narcissistic abuse, and what to do to move past those obstacles so that we can have the deep love that we desire and deserve. So I want to welcome Andrea. I want to welcome everybody else who is here. And Andrea, can you just give us a little introduction about what it is that you do?
Sure. I'm an explorer, an adventurer, a teacher, and an energy healer who works mostly with women as they reawaken and reignite their innate authority and freedom in their life so that they can live that life that their soul is calling them to live. A lot of the women I work with, they're feeling a lot of overwhelm, exhaustion, procrastination on their dreams, and like they're kind of putting themselves on the back burner, and they're feeling like an impulse inside of like, there's more for me, there's more for me. I want to get out of this way of feeling. And so then they'll be drawn to my work, which is quantum activation sessions, deep dive, introspective exercises. Typically, this is in a group environment, weekly check ins, and then just really deep soul holding.
Yeah.
And that working together for a few months, then they get to transform and come back to that self love and really feeling good about their life.
Yeah, beautiful. Such important work to be doing in the world, especially for women. I think women especially we have a unique experience, being that we're taught from a young age to be disempowered. Yeah. Yeah. And so for people who've experienced narcissistic abuse, this is a deep, deep wound. And so I also, my passion is always to serve my sisters and other women, but I do support men. And the reason I shifted from supporting just women to men is because I had a lot of men reach out to me and say, well, what about the men? And I'm like, well, yeah, the men too. And, I wasn't aware that there was such a deep need for men as well. Um, so I think narcissistic abuse runs really deep, for people who have experienced it, especially in childhood. But we're going to talk today about how, those experiences keep us from having love in our lives as adults. So I want to encourage everyone who's here today for the live to pop in the chat and say hello, introduce yourself, maybe let us know where you're coming in from. And also, if you could type the word live in there, so that we can see you. And then if you're catching the replay, if you could go ahead and type in replay right now so that we can get a sense of who's joining in our discussion, that would be awesome and amazing. So, and I want to say, you want to make sure that you stick around because I'm going to have a special opportunity for you to win a $299 prize at the end of this workshop. So what we're going to do is we're going to hop right into our content today. And what I want you to know and what you can expect from this workshop today is you'll learn the 3 attachment type patterns that keep people from experiencing healthy love, secret sabotaging beliefs that lock in those patterns, and ways to shift out of loss and into love. So, are we ready to dive in?
Yes, I love this. We had a little intro conversation before, and it was very eye-opening for me. Like
Yeah,
I'd love to hear the first one. You were talking about secret. No, wait. So the 3 patterns that
yeah.
keep us from healthy love. I would love to hear about that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so the way we experienced love as children plays a part in how we experience love from our romantic partners.
Mhm.
So, a healthy attachment to our parents or caregivers means growing up feeling loved, feeling protected, and feeling empowered to explore the world independently. And knowing that, when you pull away and you go out to explore the world and then you come back, you're welcomed back in, and you're loved and protected and supported. So secure people, who grew up that way, they're comfortable with intimacy and they're confident that conflicts can be solved so that both people win. And they feel safe with their partner also having independence.
Mm.
And they know, because they have experienced and it's been modeled for them by healthy parents, how to be honest, fair, and supportive of other people. So they tend to take things less personally, and they're able to manage their emotional waves internally and externally. So that is a healthy attachment type. But for many of us, if we grew up in an environment where we didn't feel protected and loved and safe exploring the world, we likely had trouble attaching to our parents. And this need to attach is a biological, instinctual need, because there's a part of a child's brain that knows that they will die without their parents, that they cannot survive in the world on their own. They need to be cared for. And so if they can't emotionally attach to their parent, this creates a dysfunctional attachment style. And it makes it very, very hard to experience love in relationship with others. So I'm wondering if anybody who's here today can relate to not feeling safe
Mhm.
and supported. And I know I didn't, because I grew up with a narcissistic mother and an alcoholic father. So I know that it was very, very difficult for me to attach to my parents.
Yeah, so you could write in the chat, grew up feeling safe or grew up feeling not safe, and maybe even talk about attachment. Or I loved what you said, Pi, about being independent, like being able to trust yourself enough to go off and be independent and then know that you could come back home and feel safe and feel health, healthy attachment and feel loved. And I'm scrolling through the Rolodeck of my memory and thinking, healthy attachment versus unhealthy attachment. and when wandering off, do people, are they running away because they're not trusting their home base? So it's really landing for me being codependent or being independent.
Mhm.
So if anyone can relate, it'd be awesome for you to go ahead and share. This is a private Facebook group, so you can
Yeah.
share what's coming up for you. What,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a safe place to explore these things because like if you've joined this group, clearly, you have an interest in this topic. So what happens, I think, in these workshops where we get to share our experiences with other people is we get to see that we're not alone. We're not the only ones, that there are people who understand and get it and get us. And also, when other people share their experiences, it helps other people recognize, like, oh yeah, like me too, or I haven't thought of that in years, or oh, that totally makes sense. It's like we're able to connect the dots better. So there's value in sharing ourselves with other people, and this is a safe place to do that. And I want to encourage people to use their voice, especially if you've not been allowed to do that in the past. This is an opportunity, an invitation to give yourself permission to share yourself, with share your experiences and your thoughts with the rest of us today. So these unhealthy attachment types, I'm going to get into those. So there are three main unhealthy or dysfunctional, meaning not functioning not functioning well, attachment types. And there's variations, and different combinations of these types, and some people will give them different names, but they're all generally pretty much the same. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the dependent attachment type, or it's also sometimes known as anxious. And this is when a person develops a dependency as an adult to another person. And it's similar to that dependency way of being as a child. I will die without this person. I need this person here. I need that. I depend on this person for all kinds of things, emotional well-being, being the primary thing. But it's a relationship out of need rather than desire. Okay, and that's important. There's an addictive quality to these relationships, and any thought or occurrence that comes up that threatens the relationship can send this dependent person into a panic, because that deep survival trigger is activated. And then the resulting behavior can be, it can be controlling, it can be childlike, screaming, crying, tantrums, threats. They, they'll pull out anything they can to stay attached to that other person. So dependence, unfortunately, because of this need, this addiction to attach to other people, if they're attaching to an unhealthy, unsafe person, then they can be victims of ongoing abuse. And they won't leave the relationship because the need to stay attached is greater than their own well-being. So they will reenact their childhood subconsciously, believing they cannot survive or end the relationship. And if they do end the relationship, they're often driven back by the compulsive obsessiveness of that addiction. So I see that there are some comments in the chat. We have some people identifying with this attachment style. Yeah, anxious, dependent. Yeah. And, absolutely, I got to agree. I'm going to go ahead and like that comment here. Growing up, love was conditional. And there were rules, right? There were rules that you had to follow to get approval and attention and love from your parents. So we learned, oh, this is how I need to be to get my needs met. And maybe I get them met and maybe I don't. But um, it's very challenging to shift this type of attachment.
Yeah, I'm getting a sense that if this feels like this might be where you're coming from, that there you might get a sense of, as you're coming into the awareness of being this attachment style, and you called it dependent attachment, that you may feel now that looking back on it that you were easily manipulated, and that you kind of just kept coming back to that source because attachment has always been so fickle in the past that you just keep staying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we're driven to what is familiar, right? So when our survival brain is activated, we don't, well, first off, we can't think clearly, right? We can't really activate the thinking part of our brain because the primal survival part of our brain is in overdrive. And like studies show that the blood and the connection, in that part of the brain decreases. So we literally rely on our subconscious autonomous programming. And if that was your programming growing up day after day, month after month, year after year, and that is how you lived and responded to your relationships, then that's what happens when you're in a relationship later in life and those triggers get triggered. You just start going down that path. But unfortunately, it's not a healthy attachment. You're prone to being abused and manipulated and controlled. And like a healthy person does not want to be in a relationship with somebody who is responding that way. Nobody wants to be in a relationship with somebody who's being controlling or acting out in those ways. And you can almost look at this. I mean, when I'm describing these ways of being, the tantrums, the crying, the screaming, the threatening, that's what narcissistic people do to control their victims and to keep them in the relationship. And so we may not even realize we're doing the same thing our parents did, but we're doing it out of a fear of lack of love, whereas the narcissist is doing it out of a fear of control. And narcissists have a very, very distorted perception of love and relationships. They really don't have any empathy for other people. It's about them. It's about their self-image. So there is a difference there, but the behavior is the same, and it can be unfortunately misinterpreted. So the next attachment type is ambivalent. And the word ambivalent means undecided, wishy-washy, can't make a decision. I'm in and I'm out. And that's exactly the type of relationship that this person will have with other people. They really want it to work out. And at the same time, they really want to get away from it. And so this pattern develops when a person experiences closeness as a child, and then they experience like this recoil effect from the attachment figure because of abuse. So I love you, but love is not safe, and I need to get out. I'm in and I'm out. And this can happen too with people who are in relationships with other people and they get triggered. And so they may believe like, oh, this person is my father or this person is my mother, and now they're going to abuse me like I was when I was little and I didn't have a choice. And so I'm going to end this relationship right now. When in reality, that isn't the case. And that isn't, the situation is not the exact situation. It's not the same dynamics. It's not even the same person. But this shows up as people, like a person who has this attachment type, they may sabotage the health of their relationship over and over again, and break up and get back together, and break up and get back together. So that's also an unhealthy pattern, because you can't feel secure in a relationship if you don't know when it's going to end again, or if it's going to, start back up again. So wondering if anybody can relate to that. And I can say that I have definitely experienced both sides of dependency and this ambivalence.
I'll share a quick story. I met a boy like towards the end of elementary school and early junior high, and we became really close friends. But it was one of those crush situations. But as we knew each other over the next 10, 20 years, I started really noticing that I felt really bad when I was around him, because he would show up and like sweep me off my feet and then totally ghost and like not call me back on the day of a date, and then not answer his phone for like 3 or 4 days. And this kind of, and then if I got a boyfriend, all of a sudden he would come out of nowhere after being kind of out of my life for months or years. And then the pattern would just keep continuing. And so now, as a more mature adult, I'm looking back on that, and there's so much love for him. But man, yeah, I'm definitely seeing that ambivalent narcissism of him. Just like, it was like, I think he did want the closeness, but I feel like something happened. Maybe he wasn't a narcissist necessarily, but I feel like something happened to him where he didn't trust love anymore. So he was so into me when he was around and we got along so well, and then he would just he it was like he couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
sad for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad for both people, because, the desire to connect is lost. And a lot of times we don't really know what's going on with the other person. But the power of learning about these attachment styles is that we can look at ourselves. We can look at ourselves and say, okay, well, am I creating this? Am I the reason I'm not experiencing love? And maybe the answer is no, but maybe the answer is yes. Maybe there is something that we may be doing that is affecting the security of the relationship. And it makes sense, it makes sense given what we've experienced. Joe Dispenza says that, our current reality is usually the sum of our experiences of the past. And so in a sense, he says we're always living in the past until we can learn to be present in the moment and to consider, and connect with the future that we really want to have. So, so we're getting some comments in the chat, and looks like we have some connection to what we're talking about today, and our behaviors can end up pushing love away. So relationships are two-sided, right? There's two people bringing their stuff to the table. And so we don't always necessarily know what the other person's stuff is. But if we know what our stuff is and we can be honest about that, then, then we have the power to make changes in ourselves. If we recognize that we have that opportunity to do that. So the final attachment type that I want to talk about today is avoidant. And it's just like it sounds. It's avoiding intimate relationships. And so these are the people who are like the bona fide bachelor or bachelorette. It's like they love being single. They will literally say things like, oh, the last thing I want is, the bother of a relationship in my life. So they, and they may date, but it doesn't really go anywhere. They stay single, and they want to stay single because it's safer and they have more control. And a lot of times they've grown up feeling smothered and controlled by that primary attachment. So, so you can imagine, a man who's grown up with a smothering mother, and then he gets into a relationship with a woman, and he starts feeling those feelings again. When things start getting intimate and close, then they're starting to feel like the partner's being invasive, and they want to get out of it. They'll end it. They have these short-term relationships, and they're done when things start getting too close, and they're reliving those experiences from the past of being smothered and controlled. So so you might recognize maybe that is your type, or you might recognize like, oh my goodness, I dated somebody who was like that. And maybe you knew, maybe you met their mother, or you heard from them how, how smothered or controlled they were, or something like that. Like, you can kind of piece it together. It's like, oh, that's why they responded that way.
Yeah, I'm curious if anyone who's watching the live or the replay, to let us know which of the three types which of the three types are you seeing in others, and maybe really tapping into, do you see any of the traits showing up in your life? And let us know in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can imagine, like, you can imagine the relationship with the avoidant and the dependent. Like, they come together. Can you imagine?
Fire and water.
Exactly. And it's so sad, because those relationships are just doomed to fail, because both people are reacting out their childhood wounds and their childhood trauma. And this is the power of, doing this deep transformational work, the work that I do with my clients, the work that you do with yours, Andrea, is really getting to know ourselves.
Yeah. As an energy healer, it's important for me to share that I'm not the one doing the healing. You actually are the one who heals yourself, by showing up for your journey and being willing to get into those places that hurt and
Yeah.
release
And
it.
release. Yeah. And I
Mhm.
think, I think that is a lot of what stops people from doing this work, even though they're suffering, and they have this pain in their life. They see these reoccurring patterns, they have this pain, but they're afraid there's going to be more. And so, they think, if I deny this and I pretend it's not here, and maybe I read a book or I go to a workshop, it'll go away, and I'll be okay. But I think we all know deep down that real change and learning takes time and practice and commitment and support. Yeah. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, there's various combinations of these attachment types. So, so you might hear them with different names, but the gist of those three dysfunctional types is about the same. So let's talk now about the limiting beliefs that kind of come with some of these experiences that we've had with love in the past. And Andrea, I want to do a little bit of dialogue with you and me about this, so we can talk about what we've noticed in ourselves, what our clients have shared with us, and maybe our partners have shared with us, or our friends have shared with us. And I want to encourage people who are watching this and engaging with this workshop today to go ahead and feel free to pop your thoughts in the comments. So we're going to identify these limiting beliefs around love, and coming from what we just talked about in those attachment styles. So we're just going to kind of fire them off and share about them. So the first one I'm going to start us off with is the belief that love isn't safe. Love isn't safe. It's not safe to love. And I think that comes down to trust. And trust in ourselves to make sound decisions. We can't trust other people if we don't trust ourselves, because we're always second guessing. We're always second guessing ourselves. We're second guessing other people. And so love, when we think love isn't safe, we're not experiencing love. What is love? What is love? It's a feeling, but it's also an action. And it's a way of being. So love is all of those feelings of joy, of peacefulness, safety, and contentment. So if you're not feeling those things, you're not feeling love. You're feeling something else. It's not love that you're feeling something else. So love is safe, but sometimes you're not experiencing love, and you might think it's love because of the way you were raised. So if you grew up experiencing love as, sacrificing for other people, that isn't love. That's sacrificing. So there can be confusion about what love is. And so love is safe, but I think we need to identify what's really happening and not confusing it with what it's not. So what are some other beliefs that we could have around love and these types of relationships?
I know, well, I'm seeing some comments about not trusting love, um, loving someone, but then they leave. And so then that trust dissolves even further. So I totally hear you, the person who's writing in right now.
Mhm.
I know for me, I started to come up with a belief that when I show up authentically, then I'm not lovable. I
Mm.
think for me, there was a situation with love. Everything you just described is so beautiful, Pi. And it's weird how we call love conditional or unconditional when it's like actually there's love, and then there's people putting conditions around giving you love or sharing love with you or being loving. And I know for me, one of our listeners commented earlier that it was like there were all these expectations, and then the love would start to flow. But if you were a little off base in your delivery of that person's expectations, then the love was retracted away. So for me, one of my greatest evolutions is around when I'm authentically myself, I am totally worthy of love. I am love. I deserve love, all of that. So I know that's one of my core misbeliefs from my past.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the I'm not lovable belief is a big one for me too, because I definitely grew up believing that I wasn't lovable.
Mhm.
And so you can imagine, if you don't believe you're lovable, if that is a deep belief that's running in the background all of the time, how are you going to talk and think and be and behave that's going to reinforce that?
Mhm.
And it's going to reinforce it to the person that you want to get the love from. So so it's important that we identify these beliefs and then we work on shifting and changing them.
Mhm.
So I think, as far as and I'm going to jump around a little bit, the ambivalent person who has, issues around control and feeling control, feeling suffocated, what are their beliefs around that, that are keeping them from love, right? It might be that I can't set boundaries. I can't set boundaries with this person. I'm feeling suffocated, I'm feeling controlled, but I can't set boundaries with this person. Maybe they don't believe they can communicate well, or they think they can, but they're not, right? Um, they might they might be the bachelor because of the expectations that you were talking about. They expect their partner to be perfect. And the moment that they're not, they're like, I'm out.
Mhm.
I'm out. I
Yeah.
don't I don't want to be in this relationship anymore.
When I reflect on that core belief of I'm not lovable, for me, I kind of bounce between the being overly dependent and staying even when someone is being hurtful. So kind of like selling out on myself because the self-love is not just like my cup is not overflowing with love. So it's like you can fill my cup with whatever's nasty because I just don't I'm having trouble believing that I'm worthy. So I'm seeing some dependent in my history. And then I'm also seeing ambivalent, which is kind of like I really love the feeling of being in love, but then it's like, but what if you leave me? So I'm gonna push you over here. I'm like, yeah, so like the rubber band, like this is really fun. I don't trust you. This is really fun. I love you. I can't trust you. So I'm seeing that in my history of romantic love in my earlier years, some dependence and some ambivalence towards others. Avoidant was never really my thing, but I'm definitely have someone that's really pressing on my heart right now that I get to call and have a
Oh,
chat with and just
yeah.
check in on him and see how he's doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I love that you mentioned the fear, the fear of somebody rejecting you, because I think that also leads into another disempowering belief that we could have about love, and that is scarcity.
Mm.
Yeah, there's not enough love. And if this person isn't giving me love, then I can't get love anywhere else. Um, I can't get that need for love met anywhere else. Like, this is the only person, they gave me love once or twice, but this is the only person, and I need to prove to this person I'm worthy of love. I need to be good enough. I need to be nice enough. I need to be thin enough. This is the person that is my person. And maybe sometimes they're not the best person, but sometimes we'd rather stay in the painful situation that doesn't work than move on.
Yeah, so I feel like so I feel like we're touching on the sabotaging beliefs that are
Yeah,
locking in those patterns. So it's like we're
absolutely.
magnetizing in our past pain because we believe we made I talk to my clients about this a lot is that when we have had a situation that caused pain, then we tend to magnetize from that wounded place, like bringing more in at that energetic level, that energetic frequency.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. What we're thinking in the background in our mind, we think it's in the privacy of our own brain. We think nobody else is picking up on it, but we are we're projecting it. Whether we think we are or not, we're not. We are. People will pick up on it. You can pick up on people who aren't their words and their ways of being, their actions, their body language, none of that stuff is lining up. So you can tell something's not right. And you might not be able to put your finger on it, but you can tell. And so it's important to identify, these beliefs that are sabotaging and keeping us from love. And I think abandonment is another one. And that, that can come down to a fear of being alone. And I've heard women tell me this. I would rather be in a relationship than be alone, because I can't stand being alone. I can't stand it's like I can't stand my own company, and they want somebody else to focus on because they don't want to do that self-reflection. And I think it's because we're afraid of what we're going to find. And I think deeply, I mean, we might be afraid that we think what we're going to find is going to be that we're a horrible person and we're unlovable and all of that other stuff, right? And the truth is that, that's not true. It's not.
Mhm. Yes, we are all innately whole, worthy, and wise. It's just it got all covered with a bunch of junk through programming.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm seeing some comments in the chat, people recognizing they may be projecting scarcity and fear, and that let's see here.
That's a great question. If
Yeah.
I find love, I might abandon my current self-growth.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
does that ever happen where you're
Right.
recovering and then you magnetize in
Yeah.
someone ill-fitting?
Yeah. Well, it might not be that the person is ill-fitting. It might be that, so if we're abandoning our own self-growth, if we're abandoning ourselves at any time in a relationship, that it's not the relationship with the other person, it's our relationship with ourself.
Mm.
That's our relationship with ourself. We're responsible for our own self-growth and expansion. Nobody can do that for us. And so if we abandon ourself, the question is, how were we taught to abandon ourself in the past? And why do we have a compulsion to recreate that, to keep reenacting that self-abandonment? So
Mhm.
that's the key. Like once you recognize, oh, I'm self-abandoning, what's the solution? Swoop in and be there for yourself. Make if you're abandoning your personal development or your growth, you get to refocus on that. You get to make that important to you. You get to show up for you. It's not about the relationship with the other person. Now, if the other person is telling you, I'm going to withhold love from you if you work on yourself, well, that's just information. That's the person. That's the person who's presenting themselves there. And that can be a conversation that's, where you get to set a boundary and say, hey, you know what? My personal development is important to me, and I'm not going to abandon myself. What is coming up for you that you're concerned about me working on my own self-development? Like, it's an opportunity to have a conversation, because they may not know how to communicate their fears.
Yeah.
They may be trying to control you, but they may not genuinely know how to communicate their fears. They may think their belief might be, if I'm afraid or I share that I'm afraid, that makes me vulnerable. And I have to put on a front and pretend, especially men, it's not masculine to be afraid. So these are opportunities for deeper conversations. And it could be an unhealthy person, or it could be a person who has their own things that they get to work on in their self-development. So this is a wonderful conversation. And the comments in the chat are amazing. So these deep core beliefs about loving other people absolutely prevent us from experiencing real healthy love. And since we cannot control our partners, the only thing that we can work on is ourselves and changing our own beliefs. And a belief is nothing but a thought that we have practiced over and over again. And it becomes a habit. So when we can identify what we're doing that is stopping us from having what we desire, and we can own it, and we can allow ourselves to feel the pain and the cost of these patterns, this is where something magical happens. Do you know what I'm talking about, Andrea?
Is this where we get to shift from love to loss or from loss to love? I
Yeah,
guess I
yeah,
want to hear.
yeah,
I love tools. I love tools. So
yeah, yeah.
share, please share.
So what happens is when we allow ourselves to really get out of denial and admit what these beliefs are costing us, some kind of catalyst happens. There's this moment where we kind of hit bottom. I mean, I think that's what they call it. We hit bottom. You know, these are the moments when you're sobbing on the bathroom floor, and you're recognizing, oh my gosh, right? Like, I've created this big mess, right? And we feel it, and it hurts. And then what happens is we, we come to a resolution. There's something magical that happens in that moment where we go, I'm going to do something about this. You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I'm wondering if anybody else has had a moment like this where you just knew something needed to change. These are the moments in our lives that where we make a decision. It's a pivotal decision. So we want to talk about now how to decide to change and shift these limiting beliefs. So one of the ways that we can do this is when we're thinking these beliefs, when they're coming up, and we catch it and we recognize, oh, I'm beating myself up, or oh, I'm feeling insecure or not good enough, or I'm telling myself I'm not lovable, is to in that moment start questioning that thinking. Asking ourselves, is what I'm telling myself really true? Is there evidence to the contrary? Like, I've told myself I'm stupid. That was a stupid thing to do. I am stupid. God, I'm so stupid. How could I be so stupid? So dumb, so gullible, right? And then I got to ask myself, well, is there evidence that I'm smart? Have I done things? Have I made good decisions? Have I had an experience where I demonstrated that I was smart and intelligent? So that creates the contrast, right? And it's like, just because, if I made a choice and it didn't work out, it doesn't mean I'm stupid. It just means I made a choice that didn't work out, right? So if you think about, like, how would you talk to a friend, a really close friend, and quiet that inner critic in your head? Like, what would you say to your best friend if they were like beating themselves up? So that's a tool. And I think cultivating self-compassion and forgiving ourselves for things we've done wrong, things that didn't work out, maybe stop blaming ourselves when things don't work out, because we don't always have control over circumstances, and we don't have control over other people. And I think asking ourselves how we can take care of ourselves in that moment, physically and emotionally, like asking yourself, what do I need right now? What do I need right now to take care of myself? And how can I get that need fulfilled?
I really loved the compassion one. Well, actually, I love all three of those hints. The compassion piece really, what's landing for me is a phrase I learned when I was studying spiritual psychology, or a statement, a power statement. I forgive myself for judging myself
Hmm.
as stupid. I forgive myself for judging my mother as cruel. I forgive myself for judging myself as, but really it's ourself that really is the most, I think, transformational. But I also love the opportunity to lean that out into the world. And people are, they're loving us as best as they can. It's possibly showing up quite awfully.
Mhm.
But I really love the towards the self. That really lands with me.
Yeah,
Are
yeah.
there more? You gave us three. I caught three. Are there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think another tip or tool to use is to ask yourself, what action can I take right now? What small action can I take right now that's going to help me move toward a solution? And if the solution is like self-love, self-forgiveness, self-care, right? It's like, what can I do for myself? What do I need right now? Right? Like maybe you need a nap. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you need comfort. Maybe a hot bubble bath, would feel really soothing and comforting. Maybe putting on your flannel pajamas and curling up with your pet, or a good book, or reaching out to a friend and just somebody who will just listen, and just be there for you while you get out whatever it is that you need to get out. Maybe you need a good cry. Maybe you need a snack. Maybe you're hungry. Or, it's like when we can take care of ourselves and we can take an action that is going to move us into a different feeling, and we're working on our thoughts, things are going to shift and change. Because if we have a pattern of thinking negative thoughts and beating up on ourselves and feeling bad, if we can interrupt that pattern, then things are going to shift and change. And if we can start doing that a lot faster for ourselves, that's progress. That's an improvement. I mean, I have been triggered and gone into a self-shame spiral for like a week. A whole week I've lost just being in that washing machine, spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. And it's like, if I had pulled out any of these tools and worked with them and practiced them, I could have shifted out of that a lot sooner. And I started doing that. In fact, I started using some of these tools, and I cut that week down to 3 days. I cut that 3 days down to 1 day. I cut that 1 day down to an hour or two. And then we can cut it down even shorter. So if anybody here in the workshop has a practice or a tool or a technique that you do that really helps you to feel better and to shift out of these negative thoughts, please share it in the chat, because we're all here to learn from each other and support each other. And you sharing your tool might really help somebody else. So we're going to wrap things up for this workshop today. These tools that Andrea and I have shared today are powerful, and when they're applied consistently with intention, um, you know, results can happen. But they're not like a one-shot solution, right? You don't just do it once and think, oh, okay, this problem is solved, right? It's like changing habits isn't easy, because our brain is actually working against us making those changes. Our brain wants to keep us safe and familiar. Our brain, our survival brain, doesn't care if we're happy. It doesn't care if it's working. It just cares that we're still alive. So we get to retrain ourselves to recognize that we can think differently and we can do things differently, and we're going to survive. We're not going to die. Yes, it's going to be uncomfortable because it's new, but the more you do something, the easier it gets. And we all need support on this journey. You know, we need information, we need accountability, we need a different perspective than our own perspective, which sometimes can be warped and distorted, right? You've all heard that saying, I can't, you can't see the forest for the trees because you're in this, and it's harder to see the the bigger perspective, which is why having somebody else's opinion really matters, and somebody else's perspective really matters. So I want to offer a special opportunity to win a free narc abuse recovery forecast for the next 12 months. So this is my giveaway here at the end of this workshop today. And so this in-depth session that will highlight where to focus and what to do in your personal situation. This is regularly priced at $2.99. But because I'm so passionate about helping women and men recover from a narcissistic upbringing and have healthy relationships with themselves and with others, I'm giving a handful of these away to my community. So these sessions are available to a handful of people, and you get to enter to win the drawing. So I'm going to paste the link here in the chat, or I don't think I can paste it in the chat. Can I?
You should be able to, yeah.
Oh, here we go, comment.
And we'll even give everyone a couple minutes to go ahead, and it's just name, email, phone number, and register to get support. So I love the idea of working with Pi and really looking out into your future and see, how am I setting myself up? Am I setting myself up for success? What am I projecting? I loved some of the comments where it looks like everyone's really getting a clear image. I can tell that all of you are really on the journey of your evolution, of like waking up to what is the frequency that I've been projecting in my own mind and heart and out into the world, so that, and that kind of shows you what you're magnetizing in.
Mhm.
So click that link and fill out that quick form and get
Yeah.
registered.
Yeah, get registered to win. So this session, like I said, is normally valued at $2.99, and I'm giving a handful of these sessions away. I've had people experience big breakthroughs on these calls. So imagine knowing exactly how to solve the problem that you're struggling with, and get rid of that pain that you've been experiencing. Because honestly, when you can see the pattern, you have the power. When you can see the pattern, you have the power to break and change and interrupt that pattern. So that link is in the chat. I'm also going to post it in the description. I want to thank Andrea so much for coming and joining me on this workshop and supporting me and sharing your insight and your wisdom, and your just amazing, beautiful, soothing self. And I want to thank everybody who came to the workshop today. And I'm sending you all lots of love, and I'll see you soon.
Mwah.